Hi, I'm Gavin Lifrieri, the one in One Man Band, and this is a looping pedal. It's used by musicians to loop audio, which is useful for a ton of different things, but I'll just give you guys a demo. There are a couple problems with the looping pedal. So as I add on more layers, I can't get rid of old layers or turn them off. For live performances, or even if you're just messing around, this ends up being a problem. So I improved it with what my ES50 final project was, which was a 4-track looping station. This is the layout for my 4-track looping station. We can think of each column as its own looping pedal. That means each of these loops can loop its own independent track. The top row of the buttons is for recording and stopping recording on a track. The bottom row of buttons is for muting and unmuting on a track. If these 4 tracks were completely independent looping tracks, there would be a problem, however, as audio loops played with each other could potentially get out of sync. This problem is solved by having a master track. The loop on every other track is a multiple of the length of the master track, which forces everything to be in sync. If this is too complicated, don't worry, here's a demo. I'm gonna start by recording the master track, which will be the track that determines the length of everything else. So I'll just start with a simple drum beat. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, then I'll throw in a bass track underneath. Cool, so you'll hear it buffer for a second, then we'll put everything in. So then that adds the chord layer. It'll take a second. Now once I have all the parts of the song, I can just kind of riff over it. And then the cool part about it is if I'm doing live performances, I can take out different parts. So if you remember, this part refers to the drums. I could turn them off, and you could hear those go off, and I could just leave the bass, for instance. Or if I wanted to change it a little more, I could have it so it's just the drums and the chords. 2, 3, 4. So it's really cool for jamming and just kind of creating. And you turn it off at the end by pressing this button, which clears everything. If we look in the box, we can see some of the logic. The GPIO pins from the Raspberry Pi are used to interface with the controller. Originally, there were going to be separate LEDs and buttons, but since these nifty arcade buttons have 2-in-1, this yields a cool effect when I'm using the controller. The audio comes in through this audio interface and out through it as well. This essentially gives the Raspberry Pi more audio ports. The majority of the logic rests inside the Python script that does all of the looping. It features a script to calculate the latency of audio input to yield precise looping, as well as customizable settings for different audio inputs and configurations. Theoretically, the code is built modularly enough that this could extend to being an N-track looping station by changing one number, but I felt that 4 tracks was enough. While I'm quite happy with the project, I had quite a few more features planned. Mainly, I wanted to add more control to each looping track. Audio volume would have been independently controlled by these potentiometers. This would have been a more granular control than the simple mute-unmute feature that I have implemented currently. Also, output could have been directed to either of these amps using a lever on each track. This is important since different amps support different frequencies. I could have routed the bass and drum tracks to a bass amp while routing the guitar and vocal tracks to a guitar amp. It's been really fun playing with the looper, so I'll definitely spend more time implementing these features and improving it further.